It is snowing here in Iowa right before Christmas 2016. I've got the C5 FRC tucked away for the winter and the C4 yellow coupe 1991 L98 that I bought when it maybe wasn't in such good shape, and I've done a lot of work on it. I've repainted it and done a lot of other things on the car to bring it back to as close to new as I could. One thing that this car has always done is leaked just a little bit of oil, and I'm pretty sure it's the valve covers, and so I'm starting to dive into that. I thought maybe I'd make a little video on it. So right now I just got started with it, and I've taken off the PVC valve. The hose kind of went in right in there, so I've done that. I've also popped the wiring harnesses off of the fuel injectors and disconnected the cables going to the alternator so I can lift this up and get it out of the way to take the valve cover off the left side. I've got two back, I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a bolt right down here that I've got to back out from the other side over here on the air pump bracket to allow that valve cover to come off. One thing that I've done before I started anything is I've taken the negative cable off of the battery. I've got a charger on it right now, kind of charging it up, kind of let it sit for the winter that way. So that's what we're doing. So I've for sure picked on the driver's side first, and it's the easiest one, no doubt about it. But anyway, to get that bolt backed out right down there, I've taken the tension off of the serpentine belt, and then I've got to take this shiv off of the air pump so that I can get to that bolt head. So I'm going to set the phone down for a while and do that. I'd really like to get this fuel injector harness up and out of the way so that I could work on the valve cover a little bit better, but the throttle linkage and the cruise control linkage are in the way really of me doing that. I want to just swing it up and out of the way. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and disconnect these cables and take that bracket off right there so that I can get that fuel injector harness up and out of the way. One thing about owning a C4 Corvette, it just seems like there's a lot of Torx fasteners on there. I was actually able to find this set of Torx bits, whatever you want to call them, right here. Pretty nice, really. This group down here will fit on a 1/4-inch drive. That group there will fit on, I think, a 3/8-inch drive, and the last one goes to a 1/2-inch drive. But you'll figure out which one to use. But anyway, they snap right onto a 1/4-inch drive ratchet, and pretty self-explanatory. Now we're just gonna get down here and take the. There's 4 fasteners that hold that valve cover on, so I'm gonna do that and hope that it'll come off well. Well, the old valve cover came off really easy. It wasn't stuck on at all or anything, and just these 4 screws, and they came out really easy. When I got it off, for a car with 130,000 miles on it, boy, it sure looks clean down there. That Mobil 1's doing a great job of keeping the engine looking nice. Now I've got to decide what kind of valve cover gasket that I want to use and get ready to put this side back together. So the driver's side valve cover came off probably, I'm going to guess, in about a half an hour. And if I hadn't been fiddling around trying to make this video too, probably could have had it off quicker than that. Really went pretty well. Not a lot of stuff in the way. When you come over to the passenger side, though, it's a different matter. All kinds of stuff in the way over here. On the back end, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a piece of exhaust pipe right there, part of the EGR recovery system and injection system, all that kind of stuff. The air compressor, or not the air compressor, but the air conditioning compressor up on the front end of the engine. I've heard tell I can just loosen that off the bracket, basically flop it over to get all that stuff out of the way. Multiple hoses and all kinds of stuff back there. I guess my recommendation would be take several pictures of the area and maybe take some pieces of tape and mark things a little bit so that you know how to put it all back together. These air injection pumps, hoses, and all that stuff up there, all that's got to come out of the way too. So I'll start digging into that probably tomorrow. So I'm starting the process of removing all of the stuff that's on top of the passenger side valve cover, and technical term wise I'll probably call a lot of stuff something that it's maybe not, but at the end of the day I think the important thing to remember is that if you're going to take apart your wiring harness or unbolt any bracket or anything like that, if you've got any question about your ability to remember where it goes, a lot of times what I do is take some tape and just mark things out. That way, at least when you get ready to put things back together, you know where things go. And this might sit open like this for maybe a month or two while I'm trying to get parts rounded up and everything. So coming back at something like this a couple months later and trying to remember where things go, sometimes it's not easy. So at my age, I try to mark things out a little bit. But anyway, I had a hose, it's a ventilation hose for the back of the valve cover that went up to here, and I got that out of the way. I took this bracket off of this part here and popped the hose loose from right there, and get ready. I can take and swing this part back up and out of the way, kind of hang it over the side of the car here a little bit. I've got some of the hoses off the air injection system pulled and marked, and I've got this cover off of this exhaust pipe injection system there, and I'm hoping that comes off easily. I'll probably work on that tomorrow. So anyway, at least you can start to see the valve cover now a little bit. I'll probably try to take the air conditioning compressor loose from its bracket and see if I can swing it up out of the way too. Sometimes working on these 25-year-old cars can be challenging just to get fasteners loose. And I'm working now at taking this piece of exhaust tubing off the car, and two of the fasteners, like down at the end of this blue pin, they came out pretty well. There were two more down at the end here, and you can see where one of them is already out, hard to see, but the other one is stuck. And when that happens, you've got to figure out how to break those fasteners loose. There's several different ways to take loose fasteners out. You can try the WD-40, the liquid wrench, that type of thing. You can try heat. You can also try taking a hammer and a punch and just giving the fastener a good smart rap with that to see if you can break it loose. That's what I'm going to try here today. It's kind of the last thing that you'd try to do probably is drill the fastener out and retap the hole. So that's probably the last thing you want to do. So I've got this piece of exhaust tubing removed. It was over the back end of the valve cover, and obviously had to come off before we could take the valve cover off. So I got that out of there. And I don't think the ignition wires are going to be something that bothers in any way to eventually get that valve cover off. I've got two big things left here, and one's the air conditioning compressor right here, and the other's the air pump parts right up there. And I think what I need to do is take these bolts off, and there's ones lower as well. And one thing you probably can't see, and please remember I'm the photographer, the mechanic, everything all at once here. But anyway, in between the wheel and the tire and the fender well, there's a panel right here. And it's these bolts right down in here, and the ones up the other side over here. If you take those out, it gives you a little bit better chance to get in on the lower air conditioning bolts. You can't see them because they're behind the panel right now. So I'm going to take that panel off and then start trying to take the 4 bolts out that mount the air conditioner. So I took this fender panel off of the passenger side. Used to be right there. And that did kind of open up a whole new world. What I need to do is take off this bolt, that bolt, cap screw probably be the right name, but there's one down there, I don't know if you can see it or not, at the end of the screwdriver. Another one down there at the end of the screwdriver. Okay, now you can see it a little bit better. It's this one here and that one there. And very difficult to do if you didn't take that panel off. So hoping I'm doing the right thing by trying to take this air compressor off, or air conditioning compressor off. Well, unbolting the air conditioning compressor and getting it out of the way went reasonably well. I've got it suspended now with a piece of tie wire that goes up to that part on the hood, and I also put a kind of an additional little brace from the tire up to a fastener on the hood as well to kind of take some of the stress off of that compressor. It's reasonably heavy, and the hoses that are on it are stiff up in there. They didn't really like to be bent the way that they did, but anyway, I think that the bracket that's down here may be able to stay on the car. Not totally sure about that just yet, but the only thing left to do before I can get down to the valve cover itself is to pull these hoses off the air injection pump. This one's already off. It goes back down there. You can see I'm labeling some of the parts to make sure that I don't get them messed up. You've got another hose that goes in here. I think it's maybe a vacuum hose of some kind, not really sure. But anyway, so it's just a few hoses there that I got to get out of the way, and I want to make sure that I get them labeled so that I know where to put them. I'm going to put it all back together. Well, I think I'm ready to give it a try to remove the valve cover now. I've got the wiring harness pulled up and out of the way, and you can see there's a lot of connections there. Lots of them are unique, and they only go back in one spot anyway, so maybe my marking is a little bit overkill, but the ones that are all the same would be the injector connections, and they're different by a different wire color, but if you couldn't figure it out, you'd have to get out your factory service manual, try to figure out where everything went. So just for me, so I don't have to save, or so I can save time not having to look at the manual, I just kind of marked everything. So I'm ready to give it a try. I'm hopeful that that I can raise the back end of it up enough and slide this cover back enough to miss the air conditioning bracket. We'll see. Well, I took the 4 fasteners out of the valve cover and found out that there's just not enough room to get it out of there. So I had a couple options there. One is to take and remove the ignition wires off of the distributor, so I've done that, and then take this vacuum line loose, and I'm hopeful that that'll give me enough clearance on the back end to pull the back end up high enough to pivot over the top. If that doesn't work, then I'm going to have to go over that air conditioning compressor bracket, and that's got 5 or 6 fasteners on it, and loosen it up enough to let it slide out of the way. So one or the other. Don't quite have it figured out yet. Well, so we got the passenger side valve cover off, and what I did was, this line here is actually a coolant line, and it connected to this piece of tubing that went down to the intake manifold right there. And so I was able to sneak a crow's foot wrench down along there and get on top of that piece of tubing right there and loosen it up just enough that I could take and pivot this tubing out of the way. And that was just enough room for that valve cover to come off of there by raising it up on the back end over here, and then kind of sliding it rearward enough to get it off. That was just enough room. I think when I go to put it back together, I'm probably going to try to loosen up this bracket a little bit, and just enough to give it just a fraction of an inch to go forward. I think it'll make things go a lot better.